I'm pleased to announce that Emil Amok, lost NPR host, found, is returning to Under St. Mark's in New York City in September. So I just got the word. We're going to be there September 6th at 7 p.m. and the 14th, September 14th at 9:30. So you'll get the X-rated show then, I guess, at 9:30. We'll get the AARP version at 7 p.m. on the 6th. No, I just got the word. I know I did the Frigid Fringe in New York City in March, February and March, and we got a good turnout. And we're going to continue doing it there in September. But so I just want to mention that. Hello, welcome. It's Emil Amok, Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Here with my this is our web talk show, Emil Amok's Takeout, episode 573. My takes on all things considerable. And since I'm kind of in fringe mode, we're talking about the fringe everywhere. I'll talk about my show, and this is kind of like a behind the scenes. It's me and one of the main characters of my show, The Gong. Although, look, if you've seen me do my show in earlier iterations, I gong it less because I'm much more civil to my gong. I actually I pet it. I don't bang it. So it's the show here in San Francisco at the San Francisco Fringe is Thursday night at 8:30. Wow, 8:30, Emil? Yeah. Come on. Go out and live. It's at 277 Taylor Street on the 17th, 8:30 Thursday. And here's the thing. Here's a tip. It's safe. If you want to know, I just saw something on CNN. Is it safe? The guy from Gumps wants to pull out. It's safe. I mean, they've been doing the San Francisco Fringe for dozens of years. They're at this new theater, the Cutting Ball Theater at 277 Taylor, across from Glide Memorial. And there should be no problem. 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, and then Saturday the 19th at 1 p.m. But I will say this, no credit cards. They don't take credit cards, they'll take cash only. So that's why if you're going to see me, I suggest maybe going to the Eventbrite site and buying your tickets at Eventbrite. And, you support another local company, Eventbrite, but also it is an easy way to deal with the whole ticketing thing. And if you prefer to use credit cards, you can use them at Eventbrite. So that's an inside tip, right? It's cash only at the SF Fringe at 277 Taylor. So there, if you're watching on the screen, you see, oh, yeah, Eventbrite. There's the long link. I can stop, freeze it, and I can take a picture. I can put all that information and buy the tickets. Tickets are $15 at Eventbrite, EVENTBRITE. Just go to Eventbrite and search for Emil Amok, 2 words, Emil Amok, lost NPR host, found in San Francisco, and you'll get the link. You'll get a ticket. I've been reaching out to people that I have taken classes with on this artistic journey of mine. This is kind of like a third act for me, meaning I spent most of my time as a journalist in my life. I was in radio in the 70s and 80s and television, then went to public radio in the 90s, and then talk radio in the 90s, and then the web. I've been always doing things for, digital media, but then of course ethnic media, right? So I've had this long career as a journalist, but as a performer, it didn't really sink in that I should be a performer until maybe 2014. I took my first classes at the Marsh at Berkeley Rep, studied with people like Charlie Barron, Mark Kenward, David Ford, and started doing shows little 20-minute shows in the Bay Area. But it wasn't until I was in a class with Mark Kenward that I said, I'm going to the San Diego Fringe. I think that was 2016 it was. I did the San Diego Fringe, and then I did the Baltimore Charm City Fringe, and then I did the Orlando Fringe in 2017, and I was hooked. I was going to fringes. I love fringes. And why do I love fringe? Because, look, here's a guy, a Filipino guy, who speaks in his closet to you. I mean, as a performer on stage, I'm not the most commercial, right? This isn't a commercial kind of thing. And I remember talking to one of my teachers, and I said, I kind of like to make a little bit of money. And by little bit, I meant, cover expenses. And he just laughed, just shook his head. Look, when you're on the fringe circuit, you can make money. There are people who make decent amounts of money, but not for working class actors, right? It's not like you're going to make what union actors make if they land a gig at a major Hollywood thing. We're talking about, you can make a living doing fringes. There are a handful, but for most of us, this isn't even labor of love. It is love. It's fun. It is a way to get our stories out. It's a way to tell stories that wouldn't be given the time of day because they're not commercial. Because people say, "Oh, we can't do that story. Are you kidding me? We can't tell that story." And this is the thing about fringes. It's all kind of word of mouth. You do the show. You don't charge tickets. Generally, the whole fringe idea was there were no tickets. You just show up. It's free. In fact, that's one of the biggest components of the Edinburgh Fringe right now, the free fringe. You go there, they pass the hat, and you divvy up whatever's in the hat. Now the U.S. fringes, slightly different. Like I said, there are people like there are some big names in the fringe circuit, like Martin Dockery, who does pretty well going to the fringe at different venues throughout North America. And you can go in Australia, English-speaking countries. I've got friends right now. I've got some friends at the Edinburgh Fringe, the Big Daddy Fringe in Scotland. I've got some friends in Canada right now at fringe festivals. So there's something about the fringe idea. It is about bringing theater, bringing live performance to people and stories they haven't heard and different perspectives. And, who can hate that? You're not going to see Emil, Amok, Lost NPR host on Netflix, although I wish you could. You're not going to see my story, except you'll see it live. So I started doing these things in San Francisco, and then I started going to fringes. 2019, I was at Washington's Capital City Fringe, and then came the pandemic. And it really shut me down for 3 years until I did the Fringe in New York in February, the Frigid Fringe. And then now I'm in San Francisco, and I'm doing the San Francisco Fringe. And look, it's been fun. I've only done one show. I got 2 more shows coming up. Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, the 19th at 1 p.m., 277 Taylor Street. And I'll flash I'll put the tickets again. If you're going to go buy your ticket at Eventbrite, only because I think it makes it easier if you use credit cards, because it's cash only at the door. $15 is the ticket price, but you get an hour show. You get me. You get a story you haven't heard. You get me delivering it live. And after 3 years not doing the show or a show at the Fringe, boy, from New York to here, you just see the value of live performance. You see how important it is to be live. It's It's fantastic. And even you can't have a bad show if it's live. Oh, come on, Emil. We know about bad show. Okay. The thing is, if you're a giving audience and the performer's giving, it really is a can't miss experience. It's live theater on a shoestring. And it still has the same kind of magic as if you were paying, hundreds of dollars for a Broadway ticket. Of course, hundreds of dollars for a musical. No musical in my show. But there's still, hopefully, a little bit of that magic in the storytelling. And so I hope you try my show. It's Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. I don't know if you can get the QR code. Can you see the QR code? Because that's one way to get it. Anyway, Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, found in San Francisco, 277 Taylor Street. As I was saying, a number of my friends are like in Canada or in Edinburgh. Today, I was interviewed by Joe Tomlin, who is a San Francisco State professor in theater and dance. And she does something called Fringe Review, and it's at fringereview.co.uk. And so she says she's going to put up our little 10-minute interview up there where I talk about Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. But fringereview.co.uk. Really, it's a worldwide phenomenon, with Edinburgh at the hub. And so she's there, and she was complaining about the weather because it's very hot and then it's very cold, and her allergies were working up. But it was a good interview because she just asked me, what's the show about, Emil? And this is the reason why I do this, because it was a teacher of mine. I studied for a bit with Mike Daisy, and he said, when you're talking to someone one-on-one and telling them your story, it essentially is like doing your show. It's like being in the moment, being in the present. And for a lot of, Daisy was saying that a lot of times his rehearsal is he'll get a cup of coffee with a friend who really knows him, gets him, and the friend will ask, well, what's the show about? And he just lets it fly. And I'd like to be as good as that, but, I do rehearse, I do prepare, in the same way that improvers are not necessarily totally flying freely. Maybe some are, but there's some prepared stuff that they get in there. I'm not saying I'm improvising when I'm up there on my show. I'm prepared, but you get up on stage and you're in a new moment. You get it with an audience, and it's a new audience, and that's part of the magic about live performance. And so the show's funny. You wonder, are we going to laugh a minute? Well, the show's funny. I mentioned in my column on the ALDEF side, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, I mentioned how, I got my first kind of bad review. Well, all right, it was a bad review. But, it doesn't really mention the fact that the show is about history. So my show really is Filipino-American history for dummies. You don't have to be that dumb. But I assure you that the Filipino-American history, which is significant American history, 99% of you don't know, which is a terrible thing, but it's the truth. I mean, there's some Filipinos who don't know this. I mean, some Filipinos who have come to America since, say, 2010. They've been here the last 20 years. American, naturalized, say. Or maybe they're, green card holders. But if they haven't taken the time, they don't know the Filipino-American history of what happened. They might know some ancient Filipino-American history back in the islands, maybe folklore, folk tales, but ask them about the Filipino-American War. ask them about the Filipino manongs of the 1920s. They might know something. And maybe that was their grandfather or great-grandfather. But that was my father. And that's kind of the focal point of my show. It's not about grievance. If you're saying, Emil, I don't want to hear any grievances from you minorities about stuff. No, it's not about grievances. Well, I don't know. Sure? No, I'm positive. It's not about grievances. It's about history. And it's about real life. And it's how I have dealt with this history. So I hope you come see the show. There, I don't believe in spoiler alerts, or I don't believe in, avoiding talking about it, because the show's going to be different. I mean, I'm going to do the show on Thursday night, tomorrow night. I'm going to do the show on Saturday, and depending upon who's in the audience and how my back is feeling. I mean, this is the truth. On Saturday, when I did the show at 7:00, I could barely move. I mean, I could really just stand up. I couldn't sit down. And heaven forbid I drop anything, because I couldn't bend down to get anything. I was in pain, but that's good. It made me vulnerable. It made me empathetic with the character I was playing, my father. Oh, now I've given away something. I play in part my father. So that's it. Kind of the show. You'll see it Thursday at 8:30 at the SF Fringe, 277 Taylor Street. Also, you'll see it show up 1:00 on Saturday. Go to Eventbrite. There's the ticket information there. So, talking to my friends who were at the Fringes, and one of the reasons why I found out where they were is because I sent out an email to people who are in my class, in classes rather. So for all the classes I've taken, I might have had, 10 people in class. I've taken 10 classes throughout the last 8 years or so, 9 years or so. And so it's about, 100, 150 people, all involved, interested in storytelling, all involved in performance. And so I sent them this email saying, hey, I found out how to use, where my contacts went in Gmail. It's tricky if you don't know how to use Gmail. And I just, use it in a very kind of like quick and dirty, let's just get the email out. But the contacts, they've hidden the contacts. It's no longer where it was. And I know I'm talking a couple of years after they've made the changes. But here's the default. If you don't know how to do anything, you just go to Google and say, where did they hide the contacts on Gmail? And finally I said, I was going to try to divine it. I was trying to say, look, I'm not going to Google it. I'm going to divine, because it's got to be intuitive, right? They had to have hidden it so that it's intuitive. 3 days later, or months later, I finally broke down and said, okay, I'm going to Google it. And there it was. It's in the apps up in the far right. Now, here's the other thing. If you have a small screen like I do, you don't often see the full screen. So you can't intuit what you don't see. I mean, it's not, you don't know to go there. So anyway, I finally found the contacts that had the list of all the people who I've been in class with. And so I sent out this email, and a couple of people said, oh, I got my tickets already. Thank goodness. Thank you. God bless you. And then there were some people who said, I'm in Canada. Oh, congratulations. Because the one guy I studied with, he also did a great job. He's been at the San Francisco Fringe. He's up in Canada. Great. Because we're all just going out there telling our stories, which is a good thing. And one of the things about him is that it was one of the first stories I heard about someone who was bipolar. And believe me, 8 years ago, if you think we know a lot now about people with, bipolar disorder, we knew less 8 years ago. And it was like a shock. Like, what? What is this? The Fringe. I mean, this is one of the things about Fringes. You get solo stories that are enlightening and that can help you. I mean, the family members, friends who are afflicted with the same sort of thing. I had no clue 8 years ago. I got to thank my friend for his show. It helped me understand. And hopefully, my show about Filipinos will help people understand race, ethnicity, will help people understand how we get to equity, how we get to some kind of fairness, maybe. And I talk about it in terms of, my being at NPR, my having gone to Harvard during affirmative action. And I speak of all these things as an older guy, right? As a person who, there are people now dealing with, the affirmative action ruling, shut it down, John Roberts. I mentioned that in my play. But from a perspective of someone older who thought maybe we had finished dealing with all this, that we had overcome, that we were on to something, we were just at a different level. And we're not. More than 50 years after, right? So, yeah, this venue, this thing that I do here, I just want to tell you some behind the scenes things about my show. And also, here is where I usually develop stories that sometimes make it into my monologues. Like today, because of my bad back, I had to put some ointment on. And the smell of the ointment brought back memories of my father. Because my father is the same age that I am now. And at that age, I was the young boy who thought he was an old man. And part of it was because every night before he went to bed, he would lather up. He would put on all this, icy hot and all the liniment and he's, it smelled like mentholated, vapor rub kind of stuff. I mean, he would lather up. He was in pain. And I just know that was a kind of smell that my dad had, the smell of icy hot and ointment, because every muscle in his body hurt. And I don't know, was it from the life he led? Was it from the bad diet? Was it from, because he was a Filipino, right? He ate pork, loved pork. That's partially why I'm vegan. Don't eat pork. Don't eat meat. But I just remember the ritual at night. He would sit on the edge of the bed and he would just apply this ointment. And so I might have been 12 at the time. And we didn't have enough room in our flat in San Francisco. So he was on one side of there were these parlor doors. And so he was in his bedroom with my mom. And then there were these parlor doors that opened up and I was in the living room. And that's where I had to sleep because there were no rooms. And so I'd have it on the Dick Cavett show or something like that, late night. I remember just that scene. My dad at the edge of his bed, and I'm in the living room, sort of not just watching him do this, but also smelling the liniment. And then, of course, what brought us together was I started playing Pop Warner football at age 12 for the Mission Park Vikings, they call us, which was a weird name. You consider Mission Park or Mission Dolores Park, but they call it Mission. They call us the Mission Vikings. And the mission was changing. It was mostly Hispanic, or changing toward that when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. But for the longest time, it was white working class, Italians, and cops, and blue collar. The idea of the Vikings, though, just seems funny now, right? I mean, the Vikings? You're calling us the Vikings? I guess. Leif Erikson? He was a Viking, I think, right? So I played for this team at age 12. And imagine, I'm not big. I think I was the size I am now when I was 12. So I was good when I was 12. I was a good player because I was like full human size. I didn't realize that people grew beyond. They got bigger. That was a shock to me. I stayed the same. People got bigger. But I would play football and I would get hit. Or hit. We'd have the pads and we slugged it out. And I remember carrying my big bag of football gear back home every day after practice. And the only thing I can remember deeply to this day was the smell of liniment, of icy hot that I put on my legs and my arms and my knees to help make the pain go away. And I'm 12. And I'm thinking, maybe I'll grow out of this. And as soon as football season started and I started using the icy hot, that was the one thing that my dad and I shared. We put on the icy hot together to heal our bruised bones and muscles, try to make us feel better. It was our smell. Like a family smell. We smelled like Vicks Vapor Rub. But all in the name of therapeutics. That was what my dad and I shared. I don't know if I ever rubbed icy hot on him, but I know one time when my back hurt, I had him rub some icy hot on my back. Funny how the memory comes back. I haven't thought about this in 50 years, but only because now my back is somewhat compromised. My muscle, my lower back, I can't walk as well. And I put some of that icy hot, and as soon as I smelled it, boom. It's football season. August, we're practicing. 12-year-old Pop Warner Pee Wee League. I'm getting banged up. I need my icy hot. And at last, it was something that I shared with my father. So this is where we try to rekindle some memories, rekindle stories, try to figure out what's going on, try to figure out what stories to include in newer versions of my Amok monologues. But I do talk about, in one segment of Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, I do talk about in San Francisco meeting Spalding Gray back in the 80s and thinking, wow, all he does is talk about his life. I got to try that. Okay, so if you missed my take on Trump, catch it on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. It's at ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. There it is. I put it up on the screen. And, you know, I'm looking forward to a trial. It's going to be like the WWE for democracy, right? 19 defendants, including Trump, like Trump plus 18 others. And then you got like 30 some unnamed co-conspirators who probably will flip and try to like maybe adjust. We have until the 25th. So everyone has about, as we speak, 9 days to surrender. Already Trump's talking about, you know, maybe coming in, surrendering at a local county jail, Fulton County, which is, how can anyone like, well, you know, you have to have a healthy ego to withstand that, right? And his ego is healthy. Rudy Giuliani, right? The man who used RICO laws in New York to make himself Mr., you know, Mayor of America, fall from grace. Now he's essentially pleading poverty, saying, I can't afford my legal bills. I can't afford that. So that's a sad development. You got Mark Meadows everyone's trying to get this in a federal court because the state court provides for some things that the federal court would not, like, for example, cameras in the courtroom, which Trump probably would welcome, but a lot of people who think I still have a future somewhere, they don't want people to see the transparency of this. So a lot of developments still happening, and the thing that came out that Fani Willis put out is she wants a March 4th trial date. March 4th, six months. And, you know, she has all the time in the world. She doesn't really care about the elections. I mean, she does and she doesn't. I mean, she wasn't doing this for speed. That's why Jack Smith's indictment is critical, because the Mar-a-Lago documents case or the January 6th case, all those cases can go before and can quickly be done by the election. Fani Willis, she just want to make sure that we know the depth and breadth of this criminal operation, that we know the numbers of people who were involved here. Pretty significant. And to think there's some people who still would allow for Trump to be the standard bearer of the Republican Party. I mean, at some point, Republicans, I don't know many of them, but they're going to have to realize this is not a good look. This is not a good look to have a 4-time criminally indicted standard bearer for the party. This is the party of crooks. You're the law and order party. Not a good look. But some people are going to have to come to their senses, right? The Republicans, at some point. I don't know when, but let's hope soon. Let's hope soon. So that's sort of the news, is really Trump and the indictments and people waiting to see who's going to show up and who's going to surrender. And of course, the other story is Maui. Maui. If you're not in Maui, all you can do is just look at those pictures and cry. I mean, my sister lived in Maui, finally moved out a few years back, and her kin moved also, but they lived in Kihei and Napili and Ganapali. They never took me to Old Town Lahaina. I guess they always thought that was too touristy. And so I just hung out with them, their place, their house, all local. And I loved it, of course, but I'm sad now that I didn't insist. I want to see Old Lahaina Town because Old Lahaina Town's no longer there. I mean, that's a sad thing. A lot of artifacts, a lot of history in the cultural museums there. But now the story is everyone who was affected and their story, their personal story. And there are a lot of personal stories. A lot of personal stories. And there will be for a long, long time. So I think that's it for me right now. I think we're gonna end it this show here. Thanks for joining me. This is our daily pop-up. We're here between Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. We try to do this show. And I wanted to talk to get you to maybe get one of our Fringe tickets. Oh, now I've frozen. Yeah, I wanted to see if you pick up one of our tickets to our remaining shows, 2 more shows, Thursday, the 17th, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, the 19th, 1 p.m., 277 Taylor. If you show up to the theater, bring cash. If you don't, check out Eventbrite. And you can get your tickets, pay with a credit card. And as I said, if you're in New York and say, I'm not going to be in San Francisco, Emil, well, I'm going to be in New York on September 6th and the 14th. So I will divulge the information at some point, probably next week, specific information. And then also, I'm in a play starting on August 24th, Ishmael Reed's Conductor. The Conductor. And I will also keep doing these Emil Amok takeouts talking about that. But that's it. We did it in March in New York. They loved it. They asked us to come back, so we're coming back. Most of the original cast. I play a conservative Asian American. What? Yeah. And, flash it up on the screen. Doctor, go to theaterforthenewcity.net for information. Buy tickets for the Conductor August 24th. All right. So that's what I'm doing. And I once again, I thank you for joining me here today. I got to do some more rehearsing on my Emil Amok Lost NPR host. Tomorrow, Thursday. I hope my back feels better. That's one thing. Because if I drop my gong, I wouldn't be able to pick it up. More icy hot. Okay, regular listeners of the show know I believe in meditation. I believe in meditation. I use it. It's helped me. And we close the show with a little meditation, little metta, loving kindness. We send it out to all first. And then hopefully it comes back to us. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. Till next time. Mahal